the soldier whose actions were erased from history. Imagine risking everything on the battlefield, executing feats of bravery and cunning so extraordinary that entire units owe their survival to your actions, only for history to forget your name. Today, we dive into the story of a soldier whose valor was so profound, it shaped battles, yet he vanished from the official record. His story is not one of glory, parades, or medals. It's a story of quiet heroism, of actions that mattered more than recognition, and of a legacy erased, until now. The backdrop of this story takes us to a war fought in grueling conditions, where every decision could mean life or death. Our soldier, whose name has been lost to official records, was part of an operation critical to halting enemy advances. The mission seemed impossible. A small detachment was tasked with defending a strategic position against overwhelming forces. Supplies were scarce, communication was limited, and reinforcements were uncertain. For most, the situation would have been terrifying. For him, it was a call to act decisively. His ingenuity became evident from the very start. Conventional tactics would have failed, yet he devised methods that maximized the effectiveness of his team and minimized exposure to enemy fire. He analyzed terrain with a precision that rivaled top strategists, positioning soldiers where they could inflict maximum damage while remaining as safe as possible. His eye for opportunity transformed defensive positions into traps that the enemy would not anticipate. Every movement was calculated, every instruction deliberate, and every risk meticulously weighed. The battles he influenced were intense. Outnumbered, outgunned, and often isolated, his detachment faced waves of attackers, yet time and again their defensive lines held. Soldiers later recounted how, in moments of sheer chaos, his guidance prevented what could have been devastating breakthroughs. He would move between posts, calm panicked troops, and take the most dangerous positions himself, often exposing himself to enemy fire to ensure his men survived. It's a level of bravery that transcends normal expectation, one person's decisions literally shaping the outcome of multiple engagements. What made his actions even more extraordinary was his approach to risk and reward. Unlike soldiers who charged blindly into danger, he assessed probabilities with remarkable clarity. Every maneuver had a purpose, every exposure calculated, and every retreat strategically timed. He understood the psychological component of warfare as well. His calm demeanor under fire instilled confidence in soldiers who were exhausted, fearful, or disoriented. They trusted him completely, following his guidance not just because they had to, but because he earned it through competence and courage. Despite the magnitude of his contribution, official records scarcely mention him. Post-mission reports credit the collective unit's performance without highlighting the individuals whose decisions turned the tide. For him, recognition was irrelevant. The survival of his comrades was the priority. But this erasure from history is striking. Historians, relying on official documents, often overlook the stories of individuals whose actions were deliberately obscured, sometimes for security reasons, sometimes due to bureaucratic oversight, and sometimes because the true heroism occurred in shadows where no record could survive. Eyewitness accounts from fellow soldiers, however, paint a vivid picture of his influence. They describe a soldier who could anticipate enemy movements before they happened, improvise under fire, and maintain cohesion among terrified troops. His presence turned panic into order, chaos into coordinated action, and near-certain defeat into improbable victory. These narratives, passed down in letters, interviews, and personal journals, are the only surviving testament to his heroism. One of the most remarkable episodes involved a night raid by enemy forces aimed at breaching their perimeter. The soldier had identified potential vulnerabilities earlier in the day and prepared countermeasures, including concealed defensive positions and decoy movements. When the enemy advanced under the cover of darkness, they were funneled into kill zones, unaware that every path had been anticipated. The raid failed spectacularly with minimal casualties on his side, and the enemy's momentum was completely halted. The official report, however, simply credited the unit with successful defense, leaving out the meticulous planning that made it possible. His story also highlights a profound understanding of human nature. He knew that fear, fatigue, and despair could be as deadly as enemy bullets. He used humor, encouragement, and shared hardship to bond his team. Soldiers later recalled that even under the most harrowing conditions, he maintained morale, often putting himself in danger to ensure others had respite. This combination of tactical genius and emotional intelligence made him indispensable. He was not just a soldier, he was a leader, strategist, and guardian whose presence alone could tip the scales in critical moments. Yet even as his deeds shaped entire operations, he remained silent. He never sought recognition, never filed personal reports, and never requested awards. This selflessness is central to why history largely forgot him. In wars, narratives often favor visible heroes, medal ceremonies, or strategic victories that are easy to document. The quiet acts, the ones that prevent disaster before it even begins, rarely make headlines. They exist only in memory, in whispers, and in the subtle ways that survival is secured. This soldier's story challenges us to rethink heroism. It is not always about dramatic feats or public acknowledgement. Sometimes heroism is measured by the lives protected, the chaos managed, and the unseen risks taken for the sake of others. His actions were decisive, his courage undeniable, yet the world remained unaware. until we piece together fragments from those who witnessed it firsthand. As the war dragged on, the impact of his actions became increasingly apparent, even if the official records failed to recognize them. Entire battalions survived situations that without his intervention would have ended in disaster. The small unit he led often became a linchpin in larger operations, holding critical points, delaying enemy advances, and buying time for reinforcements to arrive. Yet time and again, history would simplify the narrative to a successful defensive maneuver by the unit, ignoring the tactical brilliance of the soldier who orchestrated it all. One particularly harrowing encounter illustrates just how extraordinary his foresight and quick thinking were. A major offensive was launched against a heavily fortified position that his detachment was assigned to defend. Intelligence reports indicated the enemy would attack from multiple directions, with artillery support and armored vehicles. Most commanders would have requested reinforcements or pulled back to a more defensible location, but he saw an opportunity where others saw peril. He analyzed the terrain, noting choke points and natural obstacles that could be exploited. Then, using a combination of decoys, camouflage, and cleverly positioned marksmen, he transformed the position into a near-impenetrable fortress. When the enemy advanced, they were immediately funneled into ambushes and crossfires that seemed almost supernatural in their coordination. His soldiers, though outnumbered, held their ground with minimal casualties, each action guided by his calculated instructions. In letters home, veterans of that unit would later describe how he moved among them, adjusting positions on the fly, giving encouragement, and personally neutralizing threats that could have broken their lines. It was as if he could see the battlefield several moves ahead, predicting enemy decisions and countering them before they even materialized. What is remarkable about his approach is how he merged creativity with discipline. He encouraged his soldiers to think independently while still adhering to his overarching strategy. He understood that rigidity could be fatal in unpredictable combat, yet he also knew that total chaos could be even worse. His leadership style created a balance, flexibility within structure, that allowed his men to react quickly to changing circumstances without losing cohesion. This kind of leadership is rare, even among the most seasoned officers, and it often distinguishes the truly exceptional from the merely competent. Despite facing conditions that would crush most troops, he remained a calm, stabilizing presence. Ammunition was low, rations were meager, and exhaustion set in, yet he continued to inspire and lead. Soldiers later described him as having an almost unshakable composure, even in moments when artillery shells exploded dangerously close or enemy patrols circled just beyond their perimeter. His ability to maintain mental clarity under pressure not only saved lives, but also ensured that the unit could continue operating at peak effectiveness when every other factor was stacked against them. Another instance further underscores his extraordinary capabilities. During a critical phase of a prolonged engagement, a sudden counterattack threatened to overrun his position. Enemy forces exploited a weak spot in the perimeter, and immediate action was required. While others would have panicked, he calmly identified the vulnerability, redistributed his soldiers, and set improvised traps using available materials. Within hours, the counterattack was repelled, and his position held strong. The official report later mentioned only that the unit successfully defended the line, leaving out the incredible improvisation and decisive leadership that made it possible. What makes this story even more compelling is that his influence extended beyond direct combat. He was a master of logistics in environments where conventional supply lines were unreliable. He devised methods to stretch limited ammunition, ration food and water efficiently, and maintain equipment under harsh conditions. These logistical innovations may seem minor on paper, but in a combat environment, they were literally life-saving. Soldiers often credited him with keeping them fed, armed, and ready to fight when others would have been left exposed or forced to retreat. His tactical brilliance was matched by an unwavering sense of responsibility. He did not delegate danger to others. He took on the most hazardous tasks himself. Whether it was reconnoitering enemy positions, repairing critical communications lines under fire, or personally leading risky maneuvers, he consistently put himself in harm's way to ensure the survival of his comrades. This was not recklessness, it was calculated courage, grounded in a deep understanding of both human and enemy behavior. Remarkably, even as his contributions accumulated, the lack of formal recognition did not dampen his dedication. Unlike many who might seek accolades or promotions, he seemed driven solely by duty and a profound sense of moral obligation to protect those under his command. This humility, combined with unparalleled skill, explains why his story was largely lost to history. He operated in the shadows where victories are felt but rarely documented, and where the absence of personal ego allowed actions to speak louder than words. Despite the obscurity in official records, veterans' accounts and personal letters preserved fragments of his legacy. They describe him as a soldier who could turn dire circumstances into manageable challenges, a leader who understood both tactics and the human spirit, and a man whose calm courage inspired unwavering trust. These accounts are critical because they provide insight into the qualities that allowed a single individual to influence the outcome of entire battles, even as the broader narrative of the war moved forward without acknowledging his role. As the war continued, his reputation quietly grew among those who served alongside him, even if the outside world remained unaware. Soldiers whispered tales of his uncanny ability to anticipate enemy movements, of the way he could seemingly predict where the next attack would come from, and how he consistently placed his men in positions where they could succeed against overwhelming odds. For many, he was not just a commander, but a lifeline, someone who turned fear into confidence and uncertainty into actionable strategy. One of the defining moments that showcased his brilliance involved an encirclement maneuver by the enemy. A battalion was caught between advancing forces, and survival seemed nearly impossible. Conventional wisdom would have dictated retreat or surrender, yet he saw a sliver of opportunity hidden within the chaos. Using a combination of misdirection, terrain exploitation, and carefully timed defensive actions, he orchestrated a breakout that not only saved the trapped unit but inflicted significant casualties on the enemy. Observers later described the maneuver as a miracle of coordination, though again, his name was not attached to the reports. His mastery of improvisation was legendary. On more than one occasion, he turned what appeared to be a disadvantage into an unexpected advantage. Ammunition shortages, broken communication lines, and inadequate fortifications were all challenges that would have stymied lesser leaders. He used whatever resources were available, scraps of metal, spare rifles, abandoned vehicles, to create defensive positions, improvised weapons, or even distractions that confused the enemy. These acts of ingenuity often meant the difference between life and death for his men, and yet they remained largely undocumented in official military histories. What set him apart was not only his tactical genius, but his deep understanding of human psychology. He knew his soldiers intimately, their strengths, weaknesses, fears, and motivations, and used this knowledge to inspire extraordinary performance. A single word of encouragement, a subtle adjustment in formation, or the way he led from the front could elevate morale in moments when despair threatened to take hold. His leadership was deeply personal. He treated every man under his command as an individual, earning loyalty not through fear, but through respect and shared purpose. He also excelled in the subtle art of deception. During one operation, his unit was vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Instead of engaging in a direct confrontation, he created the illusion of a much larger force. Fake gun emplacements were constructed from logs and tarps, fires were lit in multiple locations to simulate troop movements, and sound cues were used to mimic the advance of additional units. When the enemy approached, they hesitated, misjudging the situation, and allowed his battalion to reposition and strike at the opportune moment. The result was a stunning reversal that left both his men and the enemy bewildered. Even beyond direct engagements, he understood the strategic significance of small actions. A disrupted supply convoy, a delayed enemy reinforcement, or a single ambush at a critical location could have cascading effects that influenced the broader theater of operations. He meticulously planned each move, considering not just immediate outcomes but long-term implications. This foresight allowed his unit to punch above its weight, often achieving results far beyond what would be expected given their numbers and equipment. Yet despite all these accomplishments, he remained remarkably humble. He rarely spoke of his exploits, deflecting praise toward his soldiers or attributing success to luck or teamwork. This humility, while noble, contributed to his historical invisibility. Many of the victories he engineered were recorded in reports as the achievements of the unit as a whole, without acknowledgement of the man whose decisions had made them possible. Only through the recollections of veterans and scattered personal accounts do we begin to see the full scope of his impact. Perhaps the most telling aspect of his character was his unwavering moral compass. Even in the brutal environment of war, he insisted on humane treatment of prisoners, careful consideration of civilian safety, and the minimization of unnecessary destruction. He recognized that true strength was not measured solely in victories or casualties inflicted, but in the preservation of human dignity and the trust of those around him. Soldiers often remarked on how his ethical conduct inspired them to act with similar integrity, creating a unit that was not only effective but respected. Over time, his tactical innovations influenced the training and operations of other units, even if he remained unnamed in official doctrines. Officers who observed his methods adapted them for their own use, integrating his improvisational strategies and psychological insights into broader military practice. In many ways, his influence extended far beyond the immediate battlefield, shaping the approach of entire regiments, and indirectly the outcomes of subsequent operations. The paradox of his story lies in this duality. He was a hero whose actions saved countless lives, yet history largely forgot him. The reasons are multifaceted: bureaucratic oversight, the chaos of war, and his own modesty, but they do not diminish his legacy. In the memories of those who fought alongside him, and in the small yet critical victories that ripple through military history, he remains a towering figure. His story challenges the conventional understanding of heroism, reminding us that true impact is often measured in deeds rather than recognition. As the war dragged on, the challenges only intensified. Supply lines became increasingly tenuous, communication with headquarters grew sporadic, and the enemy adapted to conventional tactics, forcing him to innovate constantly. Yet even under these mounting pressures, he never wavered. He became a master of fluid warfare, able to read the battlefield as if it were an open book, predicting enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. His strategies were not born from brute force, but from a keen understanding of timing, terrain, and human behavior. Where others saw chaos, he saw opportunity. One notable episode occurred during a night raid where his battalion faced a heavily fortified enemy position. Conventional assaults would have led to devastating losses, but he recognized a weakness in the enemy's patrol patterns and supply routines. Using this knowledge, he orchestrated a silent approach, coordinating his men to move in staggered, precise formations that reduced exposure to enemy fire. They disabled key communication posts, sabotaged equipment, and neutralized sentries with minimal engagement. The raid was a textbook example of asymmetrical warfare, executed with precision and efficiency, and yet, as with many of his successes, it went uncredited in official war reports. Beyond tactics, he understood the psychological warfare at play. Morale was as critical as ammunition, and he carefully nurtured the spirit of his unit. Small gestures, sharing a hot meal, telling stories, or personally visiting the men in the trenches, created loyalty that could not be measured in reports. He knew that fear could be mitigated with confidence, and confidence often turned the tide of battle. His soldiers would follow him anywhere, trusting not just his judgment, but his judgment shaped by a profound care for their well-being. Improvisation became his hallmark. In one instance, his unit ran out of standard explosives needed to destroy a bridge critical to enemy movement. Rather than delay the mission, he surveyed the materials at hand, scrap metal, fuel, and small arms ammunition, and devised a makeshift T-demolition charge. It succeeded beyond expectations, delaying enemy reinforcements for days and altering the strategic landscape of the front. Soldiers who witnessed these feats often said they felt like participants in a masterclass of battlefield ingenuity. Yet again, his ingenuity remained largely invisible in the official annals of war. His ability to think several moves ahead also distinguished him. On multiple occasions, he anticipated enemy counterattacks before they were launched, positioning his men in ways that minimized risk while maximizing offensive potential. These decisions often seemed almost prophetic, and while other commanders relied on intelligence reports or numerical superiority, he trusted observation, intuition, and the careful study of enemy behavior. It was a blend of art and science honed by years of experience that made him a formidable force on the battlefield. Even when wounded, he refused to be sidelined. On one campaign, he sustained a shrapnel injury that would have incapacitated most soldiers. Yet he continued to lead, directing movements from a makeshift command post and offering guidance that proved pivotal in the success of an operation that could have ended in disaster. His resilience became a symbol for his men. If their leader could persevere under such conditions, they could endure anything. Despite his extraordinary abilities, recognition remained elusive. While medals and commendations were awarded to others for actions in which he played a decisive role, he consistently downplayed his contributions. He insisted on highlighting the bravery and skill of his men, embodying a philosophy that valor is collective rather than individual. This humility, while noble, further obscured his legacy, leaving historians and casual readers alike unaware of the true breadth of his impact. Yet in the memories of those he saved, he was unforgettable. Veterans recount how his interventions turned near-certain death into survival, how his quick thinking during ambushes and firefights preserved entire squads, and how his presence alone could steady nerves in moments of terror. These personal testimonies, passed down in letters, diaries, and oral histories, provide a mosaic of heroism that official records fail to capture. Through these fragments, a portrait emerges of a soldier whose brilliance, courage, and humanity left an indelible mark. His approach to leadership also extended to mentoring younger officers. He shared tactical knowledge, ethical standards, and lessons learned from hard experience, shaping a new generation of soldiers who would carry his principles forward. The ripple effect of his mentorship meant that even as battles ended and units disbanded, his influence persisted, indirectly affecting campaigns far beyond the immediate theater of war. His philosophy was simple yet profound. Lead by example, anticipate the unexpected, and never underestimate the resourcefulness of your men. As the war neared its conclusion, his actions continued to influence outcomes, even if the spotlight never turned toward him. Entire units were saved from encirclement, critical supply routes remained open due to his interventions, and countless lives were spared by his judicious planning. While history often celebrates the generals and the strategists, his story underscores the truth that extraordinary impact can come from those who operate in the shadows, whose contributions are measured not in headlines but in the lives they touch and the victories they quietly secure. Even decades later, those who served with him speak of his legacy with reverence. Veterans recount moments of bravery, ingenuity, and unwavering moral courage, painting a picture of a soldier who was as human as he was heroic. They describe a man whose decisions saved friends and comrades repeatedly, whose intellect and intuition were unmatched, and whose humility kept him from receiving the acclaim he undoubtedly deserved. These narratives, often personal and anecdotal, serve as a testament to the profound, though largely unrecognized, influence of a man whose name should be etched in the annals of military history. As we reflect on his story, it becomes clear that heroism is not always about recognition. Sometimes it is about the quiet, consistent acts that alter the course of events, save lives, and inspire those around us to reach heights they never thought possible. The soldier whose actions were erased from history exemplifies this kind of heroism, a reminder that the measure of courage and impact is not always found in medals or public acknowledgement, but in the lives preserved and the battles won through skill, ingenuity, and unwavering dedication. In remembering him, we honor not only his deeds, but the countless unsung heroes whose bravery never made the history books. They are the ones who turn the tide in moments of crisis, whose quick thinking under pressure saves entire units, and whose dedication to duty transcends personal glory. Their stories remind us that the true essence of heroism lies in action, in courage, and in the selfless commitment to others, even when the world is unaware. If his story inspires you, take a moment to share it. Let the world know that heroism is often hidden in the shadows and that ordinary soldiers can achieve extraordinary feats. Subscribe to our channel to uncover more untold stories of valor, ingenuity, and sacrifice, where the forgotten heroes finally take their place in history. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode, and help us keep their legacies alive for generations to come. By the time the war was drawing to a close, the cumulative effect of his actions had created an enduring legacy among those who served alongside him. Soldiers who once feared for their lives now spoke of him with a mixture of awe and gratitude. His presence on the battlefield instilled a sense of calm and purpose, even in the chaos of combat. It was as if he carried an invisible shield, not one that blocked bullets, but one that reinforced courage, morale, and resolve in everyone around him. Tales of his ingenuity and foresight began to circulate quietly among units, forming a mythology that, while unofficial, held profound truth. One particular campaign illustrated the depth of his tactical acumen. His unit faced a heavily entrenched enemy, supported by artillery and machine gun nests that made any direct approach suicidal. Conventional commanders might have ordered a retreat or awaited reinforcements, but he analyzed the terrain and enemy behavior, identifying a narrow gap between the outposts where observation was limited. Coordinating a series of synchronized maneuvers under the cover of darkness, he led his men through this gap, neutralizing sentries silently and disabling critical defensive positions. The operation was executed flawlessly with minimal casualties, yet, as often was the case, the official record credited higher-ranking officers while his critical contributions remained unrecognized. Beyond tactical brilliance, he had an exceptional understanding of human psychology. He knew that fear could paralyze, but hope could galvanize. His leadership extended beyond orders and strategies. He nurtured confidence and resilience in his men. He took time to understand their strengths and weaknesses, often placing soldiers in roles where their talents could shine. In one instance, a young recruit who had never seen combat before was assigned a crucial task, holding a key observation post during a night operation. The recruit was terrified, but the soldier's calm guidance and encouragement transformed fear into determination. The mission succeeded, and the young soldier would later attribute his survival and growth as a combatant to the guidance he received from this unsung hero. Improvisation became a defining trait of his approach. On several occasions, he faced scenarios where conventional tactics or available resources were insufficient. Yet rather than hesitate or retreat, he adapted. During one engagement, an unexpected shortage of ammunition threatened to derail an entire operation. Drawing upon his knowledge of the environment and creative thinking, he repurposed materials from the surroundings to create improvised defenses and diversions. These solutions bought crucial time, allowed his men to regroup, and ultimately led to a successful engagement, turning potential disaster into triumph. His ingenuity was matched by resilience. On more than one occasion, he endured injuries that would have forced others out of action. Yet he refused to be sidelined. He continued to lead from wherever he could position himself safely, often using his knowledge of terrain and enemy behavior to direct operations remotely or from makeshift command points. Soldiers recall that even when wounded, he remained a pillar of focus and morale, inspiring them to push forward despite exhaustion, fear, and loss. The physical and mental endurance he displayed became legendary among those who served with him, cementing his status as a soldier whose capabilities went far beyond ordinary expectations. As the war concluded, his story began to emerge in the private recollections of soldiers and officers who had directly benefited from his leadership. Letters, diaries, and oral histories painted a picture of a man whose contributions were immense yet invisible to formal recognition systems. While generals and political leaders were lauded in public ceremonies, his actions, saving lives, orchestrating victories, and guiding men through impossible odds, remained largely unacknowledged. This anonymity, however, did not diminish the impact of his deeds. The soldiers whose lives he saved carried forward his lessons, his courage, and his methods into post-war life, becoming a living testament to his influence. Moreover, his mentorship created a ripple effect that extended far beyond his immediate unit. Young officers who had learned from him took his strategies and philosophies into new theaters, training environments, and leadership roles. The emphasis on adaptive thinking, psychological awareness, and collective heroism became part of the culture they fostered in their own commands. Even in the absence of formal recognition, his principles subtly shaped military thought and practice for years to come, proving that influence is not always tied to fame, but to the enduring application of skill, insight, and humanity. His story also highlights the broader truth that war often conceals as much as it reveals. History tends to focus on prominent figures, grand battles, and political outcomes, while leaving countless acts of courage and ingenuity unrecorded. He operated in the shadows not for glory, but because his mission required results rather than accolades. It is precisely this quiet heroism that challenges our conventional understanding of bravery and leadership, reminding us that those who make the most profound impact are not always the ones who appear in history books or medals. In addition, his strategic mindset demonstrates that victories are not always about firepower or numbers. Often, they are the result of careful observation, anticipation, and creative problem-solving. By leveraging these skills, he could achieve outcomes that seemed improbable, sometimes turning hopeless situations into opportunities. This ability to outthink, outmaneuver, and adapt under extreme pressure distinguishes him from the average soldier and reveals why his story resonates even decades later. As time passed, his legacy became more about the lessons imparted than the battles fought. Veterans speak of his calm under fire, his innovative thinking, and his unwavering concern for those under his command. These traits, repeatedly demonstrated in the most trying circumstances, offer enduring examples of leadership, courage, and humanity. They remind us that true heroism often manifests in quiet, consistent actions, in choices made under pressure, and in the willingness to prioritize the lives of others over personal recognition. The soldier whose actions were erased from history ultimately reminds us that heroism is multifaceted. It is not defined solely by medals, titles, or public acknowledgement. It is defined by impact, the lives saved, the battles influenced, and the courage displayed in moments when others might falter. His story urges us to look deeper, to honor not only the celebrated but also the unsung heroes whose work shapes outcomes and preserves life, often in ways that remain invisible to the broader world. If his story moved you, share it to honor the unsung hero. Subscribe to our channel to uncover more incredible tales of courage, resilience, and ingenuity that history almost forgot. Click the notification bell to be the first to see our latest videos and help us keep the legacy of unsung heroes alive. Let their courage inspire a new generation, reminding us all that even in the shadows, true heroism shines. As we move into the final chapter of this incredible story, it's impossible not to reflect on the lasting lessons left by the soldier whose feats went unrecorded in official history. He serves as a reminder that courage does not always demand recognition, and that leadership is often most profound when exercised quietly, under immense pressure, and without expectation of accolades. In every engagement, he proved that careful planning, situational awareness, and an unwavering commitment to his comrades could achieve outcomes that might have seemed impossible to others. Even after the war ended, the impact of his actions continued to ripple outward. Soldiers he had saved, mentored, or inspired carried his teachings into their own post-war lives. Some entered the military as officers, applying the tactical acumen and psychological insight they had learned from him. Others became first responders, community leaders, or mentors, spreading the principles of courage, improvisation, and resilience into everyday life. These indirect effects, though subtle, demonstrate that heroism is rarely confined to a single moment. It can extend through generations, shaping lives long after the battlefield has quieted. Historians looking back at the campaigns he participated in often find evidence of success that cannot easily be explained by conventional accounts alone. Units that survived engagements against overwhelming odds, missions that succeeded despite logistical failures, and soldiers who returned safely against all expectations all bear traces of his influence. While his name may not appear in official dispatches, the outcomes he shaped speak volume. In many ways, his story challenges our traditional notions of history, forcing us to reconsider how heroism is recorded, remembered, and celebrated. What truly set him apart was his ability to combine tactical brilliance with deep empathy. On the battlefield, it's easy to focus solely on objectives, strategy, and efficiency. He understood that war is also about people, about the fear, the courage, and the limits of those around you. He took time to know his soldiers, to place them in positions where their unique abilities could shine, and to encourage them when their morale faltered. The human dimension of his leadership created a force multiplier far beyond what statistics alone could measure, proving that leadership is as much about hearts as it is about weapons or strategy. His story also illustrates the power of adaptability. In war, plans often fail, conditions shift unpredictably, and the unexpected is the only constant. Yet he thrived in this chaos, turning uncertainty into opportunity. He improvised solutions with limited resources, redirected operations mid-course, and anticipated enemy movements with uncanny precision. These qualities were not born of chance. They were honed through experience, observation, and an unwavering commitment to thinking creatively under pressure. It is this combination of foresight and flexibility that allowed him to achieve extraordinary results while keeping his men safe. Despite the enormity of his achievements, he remained humble. Recognition was never his goal. He acted because it was the right thing to do, because lives depended on it, and because he believed in the power of courage and ingenuity to overcome even the most daunting challenges. This humility amplifies the lesson his story offers. True heroism often exists beyond the spotlight. It is defined not by applause or medals, but by the tangible impact one has on the lives of others and the outcomes of critical moments. Today, as we honor those who served, it's vital to remember figures like him, the unsung heroes whose names might never appear in textbooks, but whose actions shaped history in ways both profound and lasting. By revisiting these stories, we can gain a deeper understanding of what bravery really looks like, and how ordinary individuals can achieve extraordinary feats under extraordinary circumstances. His legacy is a testament to resilience, intellect, and humanity, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, a single individual can make a difference that echoes far beyond the battlefield. For anyone feeling inspired by this story, consider what it teaches about leadership, courage, and the quiet power of making the right choices. Whether in a military context or in everyday life, his example demonstrates that even small, thoughtful actions can have monumental effects. It challenges us to pay attention to those around us, to support and protect one another, and to lead with integrity and resourcefulness, no matter the circumstances. Now, as we bring this story to a close, let's reflect on the final truth it offers. History is filled with heroes, some famous and some forgotten. Those who act without expectation of recognition often leave the most profound marks. The soldier we followed through these accounts embodies that principle perfectly. His courage, his creativity, and his unwavering commitment to others remind us that heroism is not about fame. It is about impact. If his story moved you, make sure to honor it by sharing it with others. Subscribe to the channel to uncover more untold stories of incredible heroism that history almost forgot. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video, and help us keep the legacies of unsung heroes alive. Every story like this deserves to be remembered, every lesson deserves to be learned, and every act of courage deserves to inspire the next generation. Remember, heroism is not always loud, not always celebrated, but its influence is undeniable. By learning from those who fought, sacrificed, and outsmarted unimaginable odds, we can carry forward their courage into our own lives. Let this story be a reminder that even in the shadows, bravery, ingenuity, and humanity shine brightest, and that every individual has the potential to leave a legacy that endures far beyond their own lifetime.